Friends, if you have ever wondered how to design around an awkward door, fit furniture in a small space, or create the breakfast nook of your dreams, then sit down because today I am answering your very own design dramas. Welcome to Laugh Cry DIY. I am your host, Katie, and on this channel, I love to share budget-friendly tips and ideas to turn your house into the oasis of your dreams. And I often get DMs and emails and messages from you guys looking for advice on how to solve problems or how to upgrade or elevate things. And it makes me very happy when I am able to answer those questions on the channel. So today we are going to tackle 3 separate subscriber challenges, ranging from smaller dilemmas to full room makeovers. So without further ado, let's get into the drama. First up, my subscriber, DigiDiskette, asks, do you have any suggestions for corner doors? So many beautiful room designs always have a door somewhere towards the middle of the wall, but so many apartments have doors wedged in a corner that kills the symmetry. Obviously, leaning into the asymmetry would be king, but more ideas might be fun. This is a great question. And I will say one thing about fancy design magazines is that you always see the room view from the doorway. So you rarely see the other view of the doorway itself. Does that make sense? But you're right that an offset corner door is super annoying. So here are some things that may be helpful for you. First up, wallpapering. If you're able to wallpaper, if you're comfortable with doing renter-friendly wallpaper, doing wallpaper totally across the room, if you have a closed door, is a great way to just camouflage that door and make it feel like it's a little more cohesive. And if you don't have a flat door, you don't necessarily have to wallpaper the whole door. You could just do kind of the inset panels, just to try to create some cohesion in the pattern across the wall. However, if you don't have wallpaper, that's okay. I do think another really cool smart hack is to use curtains to cover a doorway and use them in the same color as the wall. Let me show you a great example of that here. We have this gorgeous mustard wall color, and they've carried that over with this unique pelmet and these luxurious drapes. Here's another great example of that. And I've talked a lot on the channel about using curtains in doorways. I think it's a beautiful touch. And this brings me to another point, which is that I feel like people always feel like they have to keep the doors on the hinges in their homes, but you can also just open that up and create a different kind of doorway. But if you do not have a boldly colored wall to match bold colored curtains to, sometimes you might just want to lean into it and create more of a focal moment around that door. This is a great example of how they turned this door into a kind of architectural element. You can see it is off and tucked into the corner, but by doing this half wall and bringing it up around the doorway, it makes it feel like more of an intentional thing. And I've often talked about how great it is to paint doorways, door frames in cool and creative ways. Here's another example of that. This is also a great idea to kind of expand the doorway and kind of create more scale. But if that is also not an option, I also think it's really smart to use the door as just another part of the wall, specifically by turning it into a mirror. This is a great way to add a functional element to the room. Mirrors always bounce light around the space. And you can do something more subtle, like this adorable pink door with this little mirror tucked into it. It almost creates a window or a pass-through effect, which can also help expand the space if you have a small room. Or you can lean in and do a really large statement mirror. Here's an example of doing that on a kind of sliding door in the corner. So those are 4 ideas to help make your doors less of an eyesore. And if you use any of these tips, feel free to email me or DM me pictures. I love to see how tips get incorporated in real life. And as I always say, I just love to creep on people's homes. All right, moving on to design dilemma numero dos. This one comes from Vidi. She is dealing with a common problem, which is that she has moved into a new apartment with a small space that is basically a 6x10 room, and she is wanting that space to fill multiple roles. She wants a dining area that seats 4, she wants a coffee station, and she would like a place for a shoe rack or shoe storage. Now that is a tall order for a space like that, and she did a rendering and she wanted me to give my input on if I thought it worked or not. And my answer is yes, however, I might slightly tweak it in the following ways. Firstly, she is correct that it is a good idea to use banquette seating in a small space like this. I've talked about this on the channel many times. I'm sitting on my own banquette that I built myself. Having a banquette against the wall means you don't have to worry about pulling out chairs and adding extra space to accommodate that. However, when you have a small space like this, I do think it is a good idea to give yourself as much breathing room as possible and to add scale to make the space feel larger. So my first recommendation would be to actually extend that banquette all the way across the wall. This will give you a little bit more elbow room for diners. It'll make it feel a little bit bigger. And you don't actually have to lose storage space. One of the best things about banquettes is that you can either get flip top storage or bottom storage that can either pull out or just be open so you can put stuff into it. And when you have a small space, when you have an apartment, when you're renting, you always need more storage. And personally, I think one way to free up space in this area is to kill the shoe rack entirely. You can use the banquette for shoe storage. Again, you can get a flip top, which is easiest to access when you have a lot of chairs and tables in the way, as opposed to down below, like pulling out drawers. You could get open storage on the bottom where you can just like line up your shoes, and you can hide that with either a slip covered banquette. You could also add a small curtain right across the front. And I will say about the banquette, you can either buy a banquette with storage, you could buy a bench with open storage below that, again, you do a slip cover for, or you can customize your own. I actually built this banquette myself using IKEA toy boxes, and I will link that video below if you're interested in seeing how that came to life. That said, I would still maintain that you should do a full-size banquette, and to make the space feel bigger, I would actually swap that art with a really large scale mirror, as well as 2 little sconces on the side. That helps make the room feel a lot bigger. It kind of feels more like a fancy restaurant where you're sitting at a glamorous banquette. And the sconces, you could do battery operated, you could do plug-in, but they're really nice for kind of nighttime mood lighting or like cute, fun, sexy dinners. And now that we have killed the coffee station on the left and the shoe storage on the right, you do have a little bit more breathing room to add that coffee station back in on this back right wall. And to maximize storage, I would do 2 things. 1, I would do a closed cabinet below. This can either be for storage or this can be your shoe rack if you don't want to deal with the banquette situation. Secondly, I would do 1, 2, 3, even like a hanging set of open shelves. Keeping them open is going to feel lighter and airier and let you use it as a multifunctional space the way that you want. So I hope that's helpful. One pro tip, if you have a small space, you're trying to figure out layout, you don't know what to do, one really easy budget-friendly thing to do is just to use painter's tape and tape out the furniture on the floor. That gives you a sense of where everything is, lets you know if you need to kind of move the flow of the room, and it will save you a lot of time, money, headaches, and fights with your partner when you buy furniture that doesn't actually fit. All right, moving on to number 3. This is today's most drastic and detailed design drama because we are going to tackle a very boring breakfast nook. My subscriber Mary wrote to me because she has this very boring breakfast nook that she wants to make over. Like so many of our spaces, it's a bit of a mishmash right now, and she doesn't even like to eat there because it's not very inspiring. Now, Mary is a colorful maximalist at heart who loves color, Hollywood Regency, Art Nouveau, pattern, and clearly her space is not reflecting that right now. But she's planning to make over the rest of her living room, and she wanted to start with this area. She also really wanted to lean into kind of feminine energy. Now, she did give me a really gorgeous mood board that I am so happy about. We have these rich pinks and teals, saturated color, velvet, florals, wallpaper, glamour. Basically everything that makes my life worth living. And so our challenge from Mary is to define her breakfast nook, add more maximalist personality, and do it around $1,000. Can we do it? Yes, we can. So first things first, let's clear the space entirely. And we're gonna start with the one thing that Mary really wanted, which is wallpaper. Now, I love wallpaper so much. Mary's inspiration images had a variety of florals, tropicals, different prints. And I wanted to get something that was very bold, very colorful, but also had a bit of a kind of Art Nouveau influence. This is the Fia Floral by Happy Wall. It has these botanicals and florals, and I think both the curves and the symmetry really speak to the Art Nouveau. Now, I love this wallpaper, you probably love wallpaper, and we all know that wallpaper is pretty expensive. So we are actually going to save money by doing a half wall of this wallpaper. This is always a great budget-friendly hack to add a splash of personality without really blowing your budget. Also, this is a wall mural, not just rolls of wallpaper. So you can get it perfectly customized to your size, and that way you don't waste money on overflow or buying extra rolls. That's why I personally am a very big fan of wall murals, as you can see. Now, to add more drama, we're gonna buy a gallon of paint, and we are going to paint that lower half wall in this really highly saturated sort of watermelon pink. This is a gorgeous shade that appeared on her mood board. It's very bold, very dramatic, very feminine, and it's the kind of splash of color that just like instantly makes your eyes go like wah, 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 wah. Or maybe that's just me. Anyways, just like wallpaper, painting a half wall is another great hack. Another benefit to a pattern like this that is so colorful and has such a variety of colors is that you can really use any complementary color you want. So even if she's not into pink forever, she can just repaint it with another color. That said, we do have a bold wall, we do have a bold color. And while we're embracing the feminine, I also want to add in a really kind of rich, sexy color. And so we're actually going to replace her bar stools with this gorgeous pair of teal bar stools. These are soft velvet, which is a luxurious fabric. They feature tufting, which adds some fun texture and glamorous detail. They have a nice little back for comfort. On that note, she could also take her existing chairs and reupholster them, create covers, add velvet throw pillows, spray paint the legs gold, or zhuzh them up however she wants. Now we have those gorgeous chairs. However, we do need to bring in some storage to clean up that area. So I'm gonna add in this Ivar cabinet from IKEA, and we're gonna paint it the same color as the wall. The Ivar cabinet is a really popular, versatile piece of furniture for any DIYer. It's a simple pine cabinet that you can paint any way you want, and there are a bunch of variations of them to fit the size of any space. I love that these are closed storage, and they're also not that deep. They're actually only about 11 inches deep, which is one thing that I think is a great benefit. They don't jut out a ton, so instead you can kind of line up however many you want, and it feels a little bit more like built-in storage, especially if you paint it the same color as the wall. Also, they are very popular, so you can find them all over Facebook Marketplace. Oftentimes people have already remade them, but you can redo them however you want, and that's a really good way to save some money. That said, although we have added the cabinet, we can also maximize storage by taking advantage of the vertical space on either side of the bar. So I'm gonna add some open shelving in the form of these really simple floating shelves. I particularly like these because they have these open sides, and if you add those on both sides of the wall, you can also display some cute barware or some greenery, which would be really great to create more of a vibe. But I will say the key here is to do sort of hanging or floating shelves that are really open and airy so that you also don't lose the effect of the wallpaper. Also, if you end up with any extra wallpaper, you can wallpaper those shelves and they will more seamlessly fit into the wall. But I do think these would be really cute with any sort of kind of thrifted glassware or something that feels kind of like a little bit more like a kind of Art Deco bar, or makes you kind of feel like entertaining. Now next up, I do want to use what she already has, and I know that she has a very large mirror that I saw in that picture. So I do think it would be nice to spray paint that mirror gold and pop it up above that cabinet. Again, that will help bounce light around the room. It'll help open up the space. It turns that cabinet into a very like intentional vignette. And honestly, is it a maximalist space if you don't have a gold mirror somewhere? Now, Mary did want some lighting in that area, and you could easily do a beautiful like swag pendant light or something right above that little area. However, I think it's really cute if you flank the mirror with 2 sconces, particularly these adorable glass sconces. They are rechargeable, so they are totally renter friendly and you don't have to worry about hardwiring them. I love the silhouette. The floral is so feminine and pretty. They are glass, which although you could add like gold sconces, one way to make a space feel really maximal and layered is to add in as many textures as possible. So instead of doing a metallic, adding in a glass adds a nice little element. And do I have similar ones in my own dining room? Yes. Next up, to ground the space, we're gonna add a rug, and that is a leopard print rug. However, I'm gonna do one that is in this larger scale. When you have wallpaper and you are mixing patterns in a space, you need to think about the small, medium, and large sizes of those patterns. So although I might usually do a smaller leopard print, this one's a little bit larger, and that helps balance out the smaller, busier print of the wallpaper. On this channel, I consider animal prints to be a neutral, but it's still a nice little pop of pattern. Now we are rounding out the space with a few more tweaks. And I want to point out right now something kind of awkward. That is that obviously the wallpaper just kind of stops at that curtain rod, and there is a whole other wall that is not wallpapered. So to make that transition a little smoother and to make that feel like a more definitive stop, I'm gonna raise her curtain rod and add these gorgeous teal velvet curtains. Velvet drapes are the key to instant glamour. Doing them higher makes it more dramatic, and having that nice fabric is a visual stop for that wallpaper that makes the room feel like it's a little separate and like more contained. And lastly, of course, you can style that space however you want. I'm gonna add some plants on the cabinet as well as a cute little gold tray. Of course, you can add anything here, trays, bottles, candles. However, I do think it's very important to add greenery as much as possible, both on those vertical shelves as well as on the cabinet would be a really great idea. So there you have it. That is how I would transform Mary's boring breakfast nook into a beautiful maximalist moment. And that is the conclusion of today's design drama. Shout out to everybody who sent me questions. Those were some fun, creative challenges, and I hope you got some good solutions. If you want to see me answer more design drama questions, I will link my playlist below. I also have playlists for decor tips and room makeovers, including the very room I'm sitting in. And if you are interested in sending me a design drama, you can email me, Katie@LaughCryDIY, that's KATY@laughcrydiy.com. I can't always answer every single one, but I do try my best to keep up with them, and I appreciate everybody letting me share your design dramas with the world. So, until next time, have fun, stay on budget. Just kidding, go over budget, buy all the wallpaper. I don't know, it's not always a great ending. Okay,